All right, so from one power to another. Now, you know what? We used to say that renewable energy is the way of the future, but the future is now. You almost use it in every single day. You know, you see power plants pulling up here and there everywhere at the moment, and we're using it, of course, to generate power all over the place. But the cost of solar power is dropping drastically, hence it's becoming more and more popular. And a solar power plant is said to have dropped as much as 30% over the last year alone.
That's incredible. Now, governments are also aware of this, the impact and what solar power can have and do for the country and the economy. So that's why they've turned one of our most treasured historical sites into this new future.
When it comes to Cape Town tourism, Robben Island has been one of the highlights for many years, with millions of people from all over the world traveling to the small chunk of history in the Atlantic Ocean. Now, in line with its mandate to support sustainable and inclusive tourism development, the Department of Tourism is converting the island's power to solar.
Up until now, Robben Island's been powered actually entirely by diesel, and that diesel had to be transported from the mainland through to the island on a regular basis. And over 600,000 litres of diesel was actually powering this island before this point. The biggest guzzler of power on Robben Island is actually the desalination plant. So Robben Island is not connected to a freshwater source, so actually all the water is desalinated from the sea, and that's a significant energy consumer. On top of that, there's a big residential community, so the usual things residential, and obviously there's a lighthouse here as well, and there's a harbour. And so those are all the big consumers of energy on the island. Solar panels is essentially something that just converts the energy in photons to energy in electrons. So it takes light and creates electricity. And the way it really works is that the sun lands on the solar panels, there's a huge collector network, and all the electricity sort of flows in towards one central node where it can then be transported around and used. The thing about solar is you really need to be using it as it's produced. And that's what's remarkable about this project, is that the energy that's not actually being used while it's being produced is then stored in a battery. And that battery can then be deployed. The energy inside the battery can then be used for anything. So the solar project's been designed with actually quite a lot of excess capacity. So even in really low radiation months, you've actually still got enough energy to still power the island. However, if you have a few cold fronts in a row and it's really cold and you're not getting a lot of irradiance, then what happens is you've still got the diesel generators there as a backup. So you have no shortage of power, you have no interruptions, and there's no shutdown when one source of supply actually changes over to another.
A fence was erected around the solar grid to keep intruders out, but at this size it wasn't designed with criminals or tourists in mind, but rather some of the island's smaller locals.
The African penguin is actually an endangered species, and there's a lot of them on this island, and it's a very sensitive bird. So we had to make sure that all of our project managers were sent on penguin handling training should one get into your site while we were constructing. And then we built what we call a penguin-proof fence around the project. And that penguin-proof fence is a certain distance above ground, but it also goes below ground by 30 centimeters to make sure that they can't burrow in as well.
Robben Island is one of the 8 government-owned sites in a pilot initiative to retrofit tourism facilities with solar power, and was a collaboration between the Department of Tourism and the IDC to drive responsible tourism.
This is an iconic spot for the heritage that we boast about in South Africa. So every time one comes here, you draw inspiration from being revived to learn of where we come from. But something that could have divided us, but it's now a spot that can unite peoples of the world. We've targeted ourselves to bring in 5 million more tourists in the next 5 years. We also have to subscribe to the fact that we have to ensure that we preserve the attractions that we have. And in preserving such attractions is part of a reduction of carbon footprint, which is the overall of what the world is looking for. But also it is opening opportunities for more people to participate, because the more of that money taken away now from having to supply diesel, the more Robben Island will be opening opportunities.
The solar farm will save burning 235,000 litres of diesel per year and reduce CO2 emissions by 820 tonnes. It's estimated the project will pay for itself within 5 years, and a farm this size is a first of its kind on an island anywhere in the world.